honestly, my advice is to start small. A ceremony was focused around grief and remembering. And it was beautiful. I mean, and then we all paused. It was, there was a sunset, and we all paused and took a picture in the early evening light so that everybody could remember that moment. And so it was really beautiful. But what was so good about it was small and people were familiar.
So for the basics of organizing an event, for me, it was always helpful to have a checklist. So I would have, supplies needed for the memorial. I think our events were always very in-house. We tried to do as much on our own as possible, including our own artwork, making our own flyers to pass out during the event. And then we usually try to figure out some sort of activity for each event, something that was a little bit different.
Well, one of the key things coming out of the gate would be location. Where were you going to have it? Okay. And you're going to want to have it in a general location because you want it visible. Okay. Right. So an open public location. It's nice if you have the option of indoor, outdoor. Venue. Okay. But the location is going to be key. And the second, well, it's not second, but one of the key things also is getting the word out, advertising, however we want to word it. Yep. So how are you going to do that? There's a variety of different ways.
I was really fortunate when the first year I started planning because the event had already been pretty well established through the health department here. Okay. But one thing that really, really helped me was making a list. Okay. Sort of making a list and going through all the things that you might need and seeing, where could it be hosted? Is there a community resource center or a public park that might be open? Working closely with well-established coalitions or groups that already have a strong following can be really beneficial. Getting that word out, working together, they might have experience in planning those types of events already too. And talking with the town that you're planning the event in, making sure that if you are using a park space or any other public space, that you're going through all of those proper channels to utilize that space. It might have to be rented, or depending on the size of the event, you might have to bring in the police department, maybe to help with parking or other event management. I also think it's a good idea to get the first responders in on the event anyway. Yeah. Just as a presence there, to show their support for the families and friends either way. But I think number one is a checklist.
We met at a familiar venue where, and we met outdoors. We had a circle. We invited a speaker who was he actually was a spiritual advisor for the hospice program. So he was a really, really wonderful choice. Okay. We handed out beautiful candles that had been donated for the occasion by an organization called the Savage Light. And we remembered those we had lost.
The scale that we're doing in Boston might require a team of people with a lot of experience, but I want to say out loud that this was a dream that our bureau director, Deirdre Calvert, had. She said, I want my legacy to be something that's moving and impactful, and how do we make this happen? And from the very beginning, it's been planned in partnership with Boston Public Health Commission. Their Office of Recovery Services has taken lead for them, and with Boston Medical Center, which is really a leader among others in serving, people who use substances and people in recovery and families impacted by the trauma of overdose, whether they're fatal or non-fatal overdoses. Yeah. So that is something that, for sure, I would say from the very early stages, when it's a kernel of an idea, in everything that I do, I try to say who's at the table and who's missing and how do we get them here, and make sure that all voices are heard. So we can always continue to do better, but I think we've done a good job of who needs to do the logistics work, but also are we getting input from the communities as public servants that we're intended to serve, about what would be meaningful to the public, to our communities?
My feeling is it's all about the team you bring together.
Okay.
And what I did when I was getting started is I brought the town into it right away. A broad group of leaders in the community who and including the town, because really that's key to getting the space and having it really be a community event and